Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Drinks Coach. This is the Drinks Coach where I've filled in the wall chart. Isn't it nice to have filled in a wall chart all the way to the end? But we don't know whether Italy or England have won yet. By the time you watch this show, you will. My propensity for consuming alcohol during football games is well documented, so I decided to film this early. Drinks Coach UK, Vinesack, all lowercase. Ask me anything you like about this show. You are watching YouTube. Please hit the bell for more notifications. Please subscribe to this. Every subscription counts, and I am flattered by every single one of you. I've just done a podcast. I did a podcast last year, in fact, which was very successful, very popular. So they've asked us to do it again. And it was with my dear friend, Matt Walls. Matt Walls, if you'd like to look him up in Google or, in fact, Amazon, is now a noted author on the subject of all wines Rhône. So we did a piece on Côtes du Rhône village last year, where we talked about the different villages and the differences between them. We thought we'd just expand our net a little bit this time. We talked about rosé Rhône, we talked about white Rhône, but as a result I ended up with being sent by dear Matthew Walls 5 rather lovely bottles of Côtes du Rhône, and that seemed like an opportunity far too good to miss. So we're doing another Côtes du Rhône show. So there, it's going to be quite an interesting one because I think it covers areas that we didn't really have a chance to talk about. If you look back at the other Côtes du Rhône shows I've done, I did one on a well-known brand. If you want to go back, if you put in Côtes du Rhône Drinks Coach YouTube, it'll come up. And then I also did one on different village Côtes du Rhônes, and there were some beautiful red wines, if I remember. But today we have a swing of red wines, but also some with some maturity on them, a bit more bottle age, but also to finish 2 really fan-dabby-dozy, reference to the Crankies, mid-80s, white wines from the Rhône. Okay, it gives us a chance to talk about one of my favourite grape varieties, which doesn't come up very often. Okay, without further ado, let's start with this. This is Côtes du Rhône Marby. Now, Marby, pretty well known this task. They're from what we call the West Bank, Free Palestine. Not what this is all about, but do, please, sincerely. This is a wine which comes from a producer that also is very well known specifically for their rosés in the famous rosé appellation of Tarvel, and also the next door neighbour very punchy appellation of Lirac, L-I-R-A-C, which can also, like Côtes du Rhône, be made in both rosé and white as well as red, although we don't see them as often. Shame though it is, because I rather like the whites and rosés, as we shall come on to in due course. But this wine is a wonderful organic producer. This wine's gutsy. It's pretty much half and half Grenache and half Syrah. It's from 2019, which was a wonderful, seriously wonderful, very warm vintage. If you look at the colour, Grenache is not famous for depth of colour, although Syrah is. So probably most of the colour in this wine is coming from the latter. What have we got here? Oh, actually, it says it has some Mourvèdre and Carignan in it as well. How delicious. Well, the Mourvèdre is a dark variety. We haven't really talked about Mourvèdre very much on this channel. Quite chewy, earthy, chocolatey, almost like dusty cocoa. With age, it sort of leathers up a bit. Tastes slightly suede-y. It sounds a bit weird, but it works. But Carignan, I have mentioned, and actually now I've read it on the back label. I think I can see it, because a small bit goes a long way. And it smells of black figs. Sliced black figs on a piece of toast with a mushroom mousse, some slices of fennel salami, drizzle of oil, salt. Yes, very nice. Okay, so it's extraordinary how much flavour you get for your money in the Côtes du Rhône. Talking about subject of money, pretty sure this is under £15. The Wine Society has sold it on occasion, considerably less than. I think before Brexit, it was definitely a sub £10 wine. It's now maybe a £10.95 wine, but we're talking around the £10 mark, which I think we'll understand now that if you leave an organisation the size of Europe, you don't get away scot-free. So this wine's a tenner, and I think for £10, a delicious one too. This wine has been open for 2 days, and I'm going to say it's better than it was when I opened it. It's really velvety, it's really soft, but it's got plenty of booze in it. These wines are usually 14.5%. Oh, there I say it, 14.5% alcohol. broad, generous. Again, kind of like almost like tipping its hat towards jamminess, but not quite. Like, like a hot compote of prune and things like that. They're quite delicious with a bit of Christmas spice thrown in. What can I say? I don't know anywhere in the world where you're getting better value for money out of your tenner. I know I've mentioned this many times. Like I said that about Portugal, I've said that about South Africa, I've said that about certain parts of Greece. But if you do have a French sensibility and you like your big red wines that go with your beef stews and your lamb daube and things like that, navran of lamb, daube de boeuf, sorry, got it all the way around. Little orange rind in there would work wonders with this. Absolutely delicious. Also very nice with roast ham. Quite a difficult thing to match, but very nice with a big Côtes Rhône full of Grenache. Okay, that's numero uno. Number 2. Now this is a real sort of like step up. This is one of the most famous producers of wine in the world, actually, if you start talking about fine wine. 2017, good vintage. In fact, they haven't had many bad vintages. 2016 was celestial. I think 19 followed suit, and they were very good for reds and whites. Very warm. 2017, a little bit more elegance, perhaps. I mean, it was very hot in spikes, what they call calicule in France. Again, 14.5% alcohol. But this is made by a company or a family-owned company, which was set up by a certain Marcel Gigal in about 1921, if I'm correct. And it wasn't for about 40 years after that his son Etienne took over, and he ran a very perfectly manageable wine business. He was getting a good reputation, makes wines from some of the more premium appellations up in the northern Rhône, away from where Côtes Rhône traditionally comes from, like Côte Rôtie, which means roasted slopes, or Hermitage and places like that, which are the kind of like fancy bits. But when Etienne handed over to Marcel, sorry, I've got that the other way around. Marcel turned this business to an extraordinary one by buying up famous other estates. I'm trying to remember who he bought. Was it Vidal Fleury and a few other very, very special estates, which I think he has continued brands and labels for, but bought extraordinary quantities of very, very high quality vineyard when nobody gave a crap about wine in the Rhône. And also when he buys wine for this particular wine, it's slightly unusual, and it does stand out as a Côtes Rhône because, first of all, it's more expensive, and it's £15 whichever way you cut it, plus a little bit more. And it's not a Côtes Rhône Village or anything like that, it's Côtes Rhône. But he does buy the very best Syrah from certain places, certain growers. He has amazing contracts with top growers in places like Van Sobra and Sablé and all this sort of like premium areas where Syrah is very successfully grown, because this wine always has more Syrah in it than Grenache. I think it's normally about 70% Syrah, 30 Grenache, somewhere around that, which is very, very high for a Côtes Rhône, unusually high. And actually some of the wine might in fact come from north of Montélimar in little bits of non-classified Rhône in the north. I don't know exactly what the rules are. That may not even be legal, but anyway, I'm sure he's doing the legal thing. Now taken over again by his son, very capable genius of a winemaker, and the wines are just going from strength to strength. Some of his wines got reputation from a wine journalist called Robert Parker in the mid-80s. The first time Robert Parker famously gave 100 points out of 100 points to a wine. He invented the idea that you can judge wines out of 100. And it was 2 or 3 of these wines. It was La Mouline, La Landone and La Turque, the 3 single vineyards in Côte Rôtie, which got this incredible prize. And I'm very fortunate to say that I have actually drank La Landone 1985 at a guest house, and yeah, it was a near perfect, incredible wine. One of the best Syrahs I've ever drunk. Maybe my second best Syrah I've ever drunk. Ask me what the best one was when you meet me. Okay, so Côtes Rhône 2017. So 4 years old. This one is held back. You don't see when other Rhônes are being released. I mean, Côtes Rhône on the shelf in supermarkets is already 2020. Côtes Rhône Village 2019. Well, 2017 is the release of Gigal. They hold it back. I think it's because the Gigals are real kind of passionate curators of the Syrah grape variety. And this is where Syrah comes from. This is ground zero for Syrah. It's where all Syrah and Shiraz in the world propagates from. And with a bit of bottle age, it becomes quite sophisticated indeed. Even darker in colour, hence lots of Syrah. Wow. It's more upright. It's more Paul Smith suit, or maybe even a sort of English kind of tweeds. It's not as loungy and juicy and rich and warm and cuddly like your Uncle Mabby. This wine is more your headmaster. Stand up straight, Wadsack. Yes, and you will finish the beetroot before you go and play games. So, been open a couple of days, but still quite lovely. Dusty, spicy, lean, lots of acidity. The acidity, I think, helps the wine age. It has a mouth-pursing tightness to it, which I think is a sign that you've got lots and lots of tannin there, but there's a lot of fruit to cover it. Not the very best vintage of this wine I've ever had, but wow, I mean, just £15. It tastes like things that are a bit more expensive. Last red. This is from a place called L'Ancienne École. L'Ancienne École, Nicole Papa, means the domain of the ancient school. And this is, in fact, Côtes du Rhône village, but it's probably a mixture of the different villages, hence not mentioning a village on the label. But it is actually based right up in the Préalpes. If you go here, I mean, it's one thing that these guys make beautiful wines. They make great whites, great reds, great rosés, and they're fully organic. I mean, like, properly organic. I think they might even be biodynamic, I'm not sure. But they make wines which are wonderful and silky, a bit funky, but really kind of terroir-driven, very kind of feel close to the soil. If you eat the local cheeses and the local sausages, it's like it completes the circle of perfection that these wines offer. And he has gîtes up there. You can actually rent a 2-bedroom apartment or a 3-bedroom flat with this gorgeous swimming pool. And if you're in the pool, you're looking over thousands of meters of the most incredible chasmic valleys going out towards the sea and up towards the Alps in the Préalpes. And I just wanted to say that these guys are the whole package. You know, if you want to go somewhere and learn about wine, I can't think of anywhere better than going to L'Ancienne École. But this is their Côtes du Rhône village top, and it's called it's called Terra Firma. Terra firma meaning ground. Again, I think this is about sort of half and half, isn't it? Half and half? Probably says here somewhere. But it does have these panoramic views over Mont Ventoux, which is the area going up even higher, up to, I think some of these vineyards are over 1,000 meters. Anyway, this is a wine which I really took to. I think the label's lovely, pretty. You see that smell? This is kind of 50% or more than 50% of all the wines in the Côtes du Rhône, because the region doesn't have much moisture pressure. It doesn't have mildew and things, because it's dry, and if there's any notion of any kind of sense of fungus in the air, every night the mistral blows it away. Just have these wonderful winds. So it's incredibly healthy. So people don't need to use anything, even sulfur, to make their wine. So it's natural. It's natural to make natural wine there, or organic wine. This wine, it didn't take kindly to staying open quite as long as the other two, but it smells. I know how it's going to taste in the way it smells. It's going to be almost rain soft. It's going to be gentle, like a warm, sort of like just a warm jug of water over the head in a bath, which is this sort of softness to it. Very strong, rich, deep tastes of licorice. Very typical of Van Sobra Syrah, I think. Almost a red licorice. Anyway, sir, 3 quite delicious Rhônes. I'll put the details in the bio chat below. If you look on your computer, you'll get all that malarkey. We're going to finish with these 2 wonderful little chaps. This is Baron de Montfaucon. And these guys are specialist producers of all sorts of interesting wines. But why I'm picking this? Well, first of all, one of the reasons why Matt sent me these wines is to show how well the white wines, whether they've been aged in oak or not, age in the Rhône. And actually, you get the best out of them, either if they're young and inexpensive, probably after 6 months. Give them a chance to bed in, otherwise it just tastes of pear drops. And then they develop very quickly quite a lot of gravitas and richness and some breadth, but they're mouth-watering, succulent wines. Despite being in a place which is very, very hot, they keep enough acidity that the wines are like biting into a soft peach. They're quite delicious. Then you've got sort of a development into a slightly more spicy characteristic. The wines lose their puppy fat, their big fruit juiciness, become a bit leaner, more like dried herb, kind of herby, sagey, garriguey quality to them. But the grape varieties they use are really quite special. The wine we've got here is 80% Clairette. Now, Clairette is a variety which is very well known in this part of the Rhône, but it's hardly ever the main dude, right? It's usually 20% of a blend or 30% of a blend because it creates incredible texture and softness to a wine. I've said it a million times and I'll say it again. It's one of those wines that creates like a duvet-like fluffy structure, which allows the wine to stay open and broad. You've got Grenache Blanc, which is high in alcohol but full of fruit. You've got Roussanne, which tends to give the wine a lot of more tense nervosity and minerality and drive. And the Clairette kind of softens everything up. It's like plumping up the pillows kind of thing. Anyway, so this is wine with this lovely label. It's from 2019, which was a very warm vintage. You'll see on the back it's made from 80% Clairette, but also assemblage blend, Viognier and Grenache Blanc. Well, Viognier is the king of white varieties in the north, making very perfumed wines of apricot and all sorts of lovely stone fruits. And Grenache Blanc is kind of like the power behind most of these wines. But here it's just added, I imagine, from an old vine for extra complexity. I love these wines. God, I like these wines. This one, I think, having smelt it many times, has never seen a stave of oak in its life. I imagine this wine's either made in wonderful concrete, maybe been made in a very modern cement egg. It looks like they're not short of a few bob, which seems to be a way that people are going back to go to raw concrete rather than lined concrete. Or it just has been made in pristine stainless steel, but I'm pretty sure there's no oak involved here. The wine would have sat on its lees for a little while, the dead yeast cells to give it a bit more fatness. It's almost like it would put it in your mouth and it just disappears. It turns into a gas. It's beautifully soft. It doesn't have dense tightness, which is something you'd expect from something like a Chablis or from a really serious white Bordeaux. You know, that kind of core of mouth-watering, eyes-watering kind of tense flavours. This wine is much more chilled out than that. This wine is literally sitting by the pool with a pair of Ray-Ban Wayfarers on, listening to some music from the 80s in a deck chair with a pina colada kind of thing. It's very relaxed. And it just defines what Clairette's all about. And Clairette can age incredibly well. What does Clairette taste like? Very little, actually. It's more about texture than flavour. The flavours I'm getting are from that little seasoning of Viognier, which is more like dried apricot. The Grenache confit pear, almost cinnamon in there as well. Very nice. Bringing us on to the last wine of today's chit-chat. Château de Montfrin à la Rêverie. La Rêverie, the dreamery? What does that mean? Bedroom? I don't know. my French is getting worse by the day that I've not been in France. But Château de Montfrin makes some really beautiful wines. Again, it's a place you can stay. These wines aren't cheap. But very, very good. I think you're looking again about £15 maybe for this. But this is a Côtes Giron Blanc. And this wine is made from mostly a massive chunk of Roussanne, which is the noble, elegant statesman, the states bear of grape varieties in the Rhône in terms of white varieties. It has a lovely freshness, it has incredible density, it has the ability to age for decades, but also when it's big and rich, it has what Hugh Johnson, the famous wine journalist, referred to as cut. It has a freshness, a clip to it, a texture or something which stops it from tasting fat and oily. And this wine has been then mixed with a little bit of Grenache Blanc, I think, and then Bob's your uncle. So this wine is a Roussanne. The wine before it was a Clairette, basically. But this wine has also seen the inside of some very expensive wood barrels for a very short period of time. It doesn't in any way reek of oak. It's perfectly managed. I imagine it's been aged in big barrels, either demi-muid 400-500 litre size, or maybe it's even fooders of 2000. But gosh, that smells expensive. Not sure what I'm going to drink or eat with that later, but it'd be lovely with something like a lobster ravioli or something like that. It'd be fantastic. What a way to finish. There I am, 20 more minutes of wanking on about Côtes Giron. Clearly enjoying myself though, aren't I? buy these wines. They're really, really good. See you next time.